Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today's video is going to be a would I repurchase or purchase these if they were new to market eyeshadow palette video. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. This video is going to be an overview of 9 older eyeshadow palettes that are still in my makeup collection. And we're sort of going to talk about them in the sense of, if they were new to market today, would these still be interesting compared to everything else I already have in my makeup collection? Or would they be worth a repurchase if I lost them, my house got burnt down, that sort of thing? Like, would I miss these? That sort of thing. So that's sort of like the twofold of this video. So let me just get to it. And today's edition is going to be Huda Beauty mini palettes. In case you're new here, you've never seen one of my videos. Hi, my name is Maaike. I live in the Netherlands. I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, and this greatly influences how I feel about makeup. I love reviewing makeup though, but I've also been doing it for a long time, more than a decade by now. I love trying eyeshadow palettes as a cicatrice and getting the use out of my makeup. So if that's something you're interested in as well, then I hope you'd like to consider subscribing. So like I mentioned in the intro, we're doing a dedicated, because I have 9 of these, dedicated Huda Beauty mini palette sort of edition today. Because I was like, you know what eyeshadow palette should I talk about in this month's Would I Repurchase series? And I was like, you know what, let's do Huda Beauty. Because I just have a couple of these Obsession 9-pan palettes, and I think some of these are nice. I have decluttered some of these over the years of other ones that I used to own. I got rid of the blue one and the rainbow one from like the very first collection. I got rid of the Neon Obsessions one that I had in the orange, because I just kind of knew I wasn't going to be wearing those kind of shades. But these are the ones that are still around, so let me just go through them. Before we get to the actual individual palettes, I have to say something about how I like to use these now. Now I like to use these as companion palettes to each other. So I kind of use them as bigger palettes. So for instance, the ones here at the top are the 2 green palettes I have. I think I actually have, yeah. So these are the green ones. So I have the Cocky Haze and the Emerald Obsessions. And because the Cocky Haze isn't that cocky, I like to use some of the shades that are in the Emerald Obsessions in conjunction to this. So to make this more green or to make this one more neutral, I like combining these. Now, a lot of these Huda Beauty palettes are very monochromatic. Like they only have like one sort of shade that they kind of centered around. And I think a lot of the critique with some of these was that, you know, they either weren't having the shades in that they were advertised for. The Neon Obsessions was a whole thing with a lawsuit where it was not listed on the packaging that it wasn't eye safe, because apparently the pigments in those palettes were some of like those very vibrant pigments you get that can stain the lids. So that's why there was a whole lawsuit there, and that's why they were taking off the market. So these palettes are not without their issues, you could say. And if I'm not mistaken, does it say here? I'm not sure if this is true, because it says here that the production city is Dubai, because that's of course where Huda Beauty is from, and it says it on both of these. But I have heard that these are made in China, whereas the bigger Huda Beauty palettes are actually made in Italy. So that's why some people who were used to Huda Beauty's larger palettes, I've always felt a little bit disappointed with these smaller things, because it's not the same quality, and it's not because these are made in a different factory. I do know that for sure. But yeah, I have a bunch of these, so let me show you which ones I have and go through them one by one. So let me just start with the oldest one I have. As I mentioned, I have this guy right here. This is the Emerald Obsessions palette. This was back when they still had the cardboard packaging. I actually think I prefer, for a palette this small, I prefer the cardboard. And this is the only one I have kept from the originals. I used to have, as I mentioned, the blue and the rainbow and the purple. But both the blue and the purple, like the blue just really had a couple of dud shades in it. The purple had many different undertones that made it look more pink on me than purple, so I didn't love it for that reason. And the rainbow, it had a couple of really nice shades, but I have plenty of other rainbow palettes by now that I like better than that one. So that's why the Emerald is the only one I decided to keep. And you can see here as well that it has a lot of different undertones. These are a little bit more green. These are a little bit more vibrant. Here we get some things that are a little bit more like on the brown leaning side. And then you just get some things that are like more like golds even. Especially this one right here is more like a yellow gold. So yeah, lots of different textures and shades in a little 9-pan. And with 9-pans, I always feel that I do want the undertones to match. And even though these undertones don't match, I do feel I can get the like most like out of this one when I do use some of these greens together. Would I have to like run out and get this when I would lose this, or if this came to market today? I would not buy this because I have other green palettes, even 9-pan palettes in my collection that I like a little bit better. They have better quality. They were cheaper for me because they're both by Glam Shop. I have 2 Glam Shop palettes that are green toned that I really, really adore, and I just like them a little bit better than this. The only reason why this sort of gets to stay, I guess, is because I like using it with the Cocky Haze. Now, the Haze collection is the only one that I bought in full of these. Like, with some of them, I would only, like, pick 1, or I would pick, like, 2 of them. Yeah, so from, like, 3 of the lines, I have 1, and then I have 2 from, like, that nude thing they did. But the Haze collection I have in full. This one I bought. And the reason why I got all of these is because of that haze thing. This was exactly why a lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people who love like boom, pigmentation, colorful, woo, they're called haze for a reason. Because whether you're doing the neutral, the purple, or the green, these are supposed to give you still a very neutral vibe, but with a hint of color. So if we then look at the Cocky Haze at first, it is warm tone neutrals. So if you really can't get down with neutrals that are more warm tone leaning, you're not going to like it. That's one of the critiques I have with a lot of these little Huda Beauty palettes, is that they don't really offer variation in terms of the types of neutrals you get. It's always going to be a warm tone. It's always something that leans a little bit more peach, because that's deemed flattering on most people, I think. But if you have a true cool undertone, a lot of these Huda Beauty things won't work for you. But here you get those like warmer toned, almost orange leaning browns, a full row of greens, and then you just have these like more almost like pinky leaning neutrals, and then something that pulls a little bit more gold. So you could do a full on neutral look with this. If you pull into gold, you can make it a cocky look if you want. On some people, these cocky greens didn't show up as cocky greens on them. Oh, by the way, I do say cocky rather than khaki, which I know is the American English pronunciation, but cocky is more universally used around the globe, so I'm using that one. So yeah, here we have those greens that don't really show up as cockies on some people. Some people found them too, like, they pull brown on them. On me, perhaps because I have a more neutral undertone, I feel they do show up pretty true to pan, and of course, you do get a cooler tone brown to deepen things up, which I always appreciate. So yeah, I do enjoy this one, but like I said, it is a bit limiting because I don't really use, like, whenever I go into this, I kind of ignore those 3 shades. So again, if I have to answer my question, would I go back to the Cocky Haze? Is this something I would purchase? Then now that I know what it does for me, it's probably one I would skip, but I do really appreciate it. Combined with the Emerald Obsessions. Before we get to the other Haze palettes, I need to show you my next combo, which is my purple combo. So I have the Purple Haze and the Lilac Obsessions. This was from a pastel collection they did. It came with like a rosy shade and then I think something minty green. Let me open up the the Purple Haze. And again, if I reach for these palettes nowadays, I reach for these together. But here you can see what I mean with like Huda Beauty insisting on putting peaches in here. I feel that that's really the true letdown of this palette here. If these two peachy tones weren't there, it would have been so much better. Like if these were taupes or something a bit more cool toned, I think it would work a lot better. As far as the entire palette coming together, this is also quite warm toned, but I do like it. It's a little bit more of like a pinky peach. So I feel that works a little bit better, but these are also far too similar. Like when I use this or this, it doesn't really look any differently. So for me, I kind of just skip these two and then I use the rest of the palette as is. These were critiqued a lot because they are so incredibly light, but that's why they work for me. On my fair skin, this works really well, but again, not like it could do with a deepening up shade. That's the thing I'm missing. Like if we could get like one mid-tone brown, like a neutral brown with this, like a taupe leaning neutral brown, and then a deeper purple, this would have worked better. But of course it's a pastel palette. So what do we expect? Did we really expect this to have any depth? But if I want that depth, you can see here how beautiful these purples are. Can I put this like side by side that you can like sort of see the vision? So here again with the Purple Haze, we just get a lot of warmth, but you can just see how these like two little palettes really complement each other. I love these four in this to go together with that. But if you want to use the peaches in the other palette, then this side can be really nice as well to pull that in. And these kind of shades are really beautiful on people with warm skin tones, and especially if they have more like a deeper skin tone as well. Again, not a full-on purple palette, which is why a lot of people didn't like this one, but together they are again really nice. So for me, the Lilac Pastels Obsessions was wonderful actually. This works really well. But I have other pastel-y leaning purple palettes in my collection. I'm going to sound like a broken record, so would I buy this currently? I don't think so. If I'd lose it in my collection, I don't think I'd miss it. I wouldn't run out and buy this one for sure. And I think I feel similarly about the Sand Haze. As much as I appreciate these shades here, like for a full-on purple look, really pretty. But again, I have other purple palettes I just like a little bit better. Again, Glam Shop is a culprit here, but I also have the Lavish palette from Colourpop that I really enjoy. I have some other purples from Colourpop that I still have in my collection that I like. But this is also giving me Melt Cheese and Parties vibes, like especially the warm tones, which is more mauve leaning. It's not as like true purple as this is. But I have plenty of good purples in my makeup collection in other palettes that may not be dedicated purple palettes, but my favorite color story to buy for like a truly colorful look is a green, blue, purple palette. So I have quite a few of those. So I have plenty of purples in other places, and especially these types. They're purples you can find in a lot of different palettes, I feel. So this isn't super unique, and therefore it would not be a repurchase if I lost all of my makeup. And if this were released nowadays, I don't think I'd be interested. Let's talk about the other two one-offs that I have. I have the Chocolate Brown and the Wild Jaguar. I think the brown collection came out next, and I went with the one that's actually meant for deeper skin tones, I believe. Like, this was the only one that appealed to me. Like, some people ask me, like, if you go warm toned, what do you like to wear? And it's something like this that pulls a little bit more red, because if I have a warm with a redder undertone, it tends to pull a little bit pinky on me because of my cooler neutral undertone. And this may look very peachy, but again, because of my neutral undertone, I can get away with shades like this. Something like this or this will just blend away into my skin tone really nicely. You get a lighter like beige shade, which is really nice for blending some of these deeper shades out. Like, the only thing I'm not super stoked with is this orange. But can you see the vision? Like, in terms of like neutral browns with like some really nice depth, it works. Did I need this in my life? Of course not. I did not need this one in my life, but I do like how it complements the other more aimed at deep skin tone neutral palette I have from Huda Beauty, which is the Nude Rich So I kind of feel that if I, like, this is quite rosy leaning, so if I want to make this more brown, or if I want more rosy things to go into this one, I go between these two as well. So again, from a complementary perspective, this works quite well. And I do enjoy this, but in terms of like warm tone browns, I think I should have just stuck to my Tartelette Toasted rather than having this. But yeah, I do have some warm palettes. You guys, I do have some. This is one of them. It's not going anywhere, but if this came out today, I wouldn't buy it. And it's also not something I would like miss from my collection at all. And I was showing you the Wild Jaguar in conjunction to this. The Wild Jaguar is one of the first times Huda Beauty did anything that's a little bit more cool toned. And then we get a gold and we get this beige. So those are the two shades I don't use in here. And other than that, it's just a really nice smoky eye sort of palette. Color story wise, this is definitely my favorite because you get those two like purpley things. This taupey thing is quite nice. I do enjoy the brown in here. The black, not sure I love it. And then you get something like taupey and silvery in the shimmers here as well. I do enjoy this, but I just needed slightly different shades for like blending and the inner corner highlight option, because the gold is essentially like the lightest thing you get in here. So it's perhaps a little bit too dark, a little bit too smoky for my liking. This is the kind of palette that has had me say for a very long time that brands insist on putting the wrong shades in cool tone eyeshadow palettes. This is one I feel where that happened as well. I'm glad I have it. This is one of the better quality ones from these Zoeva Huda Beauty palettes for sure. I really do enjoy this. It is really, really pretty. I like the packaging of this one as well. Necessary in my collection at this point? Not at all. If it came out today, I wouldn't buy it. If I lost all my makeup, I wouldn't miss it. In fact, the reason why I'm doing this video with all of these Huda Beauty palettes is so that I'm like, oh yeah, I have those as well. So need to put them in a Shop My Stash at some point. And then I already showed you the Sand Haze as part of my little haze collection, but I also have two of the Nude Obsessions. And this collection came out when I was in New York in 2019. And I think, did I pick them up there? I think I did, but they had a light, a medium, and a rich. And I only got the light and the rich because the medium was orange, essentially. And then I sort of bought the Sand Haze later, and I felt that that bridged the gap between these two much better. And what I also felt at the time was that this was my rendition of the Huda Beauty New Nude. Remember the bigger New Nude palette that they did? I think it's discontinued now. I never got that. I tried some dupes that were out there, like blatant dupes that were doing the same thing. But from the brand, I felt this was much better because Huda Beauty always did pressed glitters at the time. And there was like a cream in there that was supposed to be like a base for your eyeshadow that was far too dark for me. So from an 18 pan palette, there were like 3 or 4 shades I already knew I would never use. So that's why I got these, because these are also 18 shades together that complement each other actually quite nicely, but without the weird shades. So that's why I went with this, and I still really enjoy this. Again with the peach, I like the rosy tones, but you get these really pretty lavenders in here, and you do get something to deepen it up, but for like fair skin, this is beautiful. Provided you do have a warmer undertone. I think this works better on people with a warm undertone, but I love this mauve shimmer. There's a reason why that one has a dent. And then, you know, you do get like, you could do like a full-on mauvey lilac look with this. You can pull in those warm tone neutrals. It's got a rose gold. I mean, it's very much of its time, but I do like it. And then I like to pair it with this, because this is essentially the same palette, but with some like a dialed up saturation, you could say. So I love pairing these together, because you can just see that this, when you hold these up together, you can just see that, say for this random peach, this is rosy and this is rosy as well. And look at that rosy tone in the middle that it has here, and that shimmer that's right here. like these two, and then this row, and then those reddish tones. Like I said, if I need to go warm toned, I like it if it's like reddish rosy leaning, because that can still pull a little bit pinky on my skin tone and it can actually look nice. The depth of that darker shade here is, it's a plum. On me, it looks like a plum. So in terms of undertones, this worked really well. And then you get that deeper purple, so that if you want to get more depth out of your purple look that you can do with this, they combine each other really nicely. This by itself, I don't like on my skin tone. This by itself can work, and then I usually pull in some shades from this to make it work. That's how I bought them. That's how I've always used them. Could I do without these in my makeup collection? I think yes. But if this came out today in these like little 9 pan curated little outlooks, I think I would still be interested. I would want a mix of shades. Like I would be a bit more critical right now with like the peachy tone that is in here, and like undertone wise, this actually works better for me than the light skinned one. And this is something that I find a lot of brands actually do, is that they cater to cool tones and deep skin tones much better than they do in fair skin tones. They seem to think that if you're light, you want peach. There's always peachy tones, like also in blush ranges. Like you look at the options brands have for lighter skin tones, and it's always a bright pink and a peach. Whereas I'm like, where's like the red with the pink undertone? Like if you make that less pigmented, I can wear it too, you know? Somebody else can just build it up and use a bit more product. Oh well. Rant over. That's just how I feel. I feel that a lot of makeup aimed at deeper skin is very often more cool toned, which is especially for blushes. I tend to buy blushes that are not aimed at my skin tone, and I just use a very light hand or a different brush, and I can get away with it. And then I still have the sand haze here. And then I think you can see what I mean with this bridging the gap. I won't be able to hold them up together, all three of them, to the camera without dropping things. But you can see how this is sort of like the more dialed up version of the nude light. Here again, we get a couple of shades, like these like plummy things that go really nicely. But this has like some taupey things. Like rosy taupe leaning. Like this section I love. Again with the peach. Don't love the peach. And then we get this very light yellow ivory shade, which I'm also not a fan of. But there I have my like light pinky things that are in here. So I feel that those can complement each other quite well. And then this bridges the gap between this as well, because you can just see that those like warmer tones, those reddish tones, go really well with this one. So for me, this is the medium palette. I needed the medium palette to be. This I've always found the most special one. In terms of what it does for me on my skin, it's really pretty. It's really pretty. I just got it a little bit later, and I have so many neutral shades that this doesn't look that used. But this has made me realize that maybe these three need to go into a Shop My Stash really, really soon, because maybe February can be like the moment for me to go back to these and like use them in conjunction and like do a couple of fun looks, because these are good. These I think are special enough. Like I try so many neutral eyeshadow palettes, and in terms of what these have to offer, I think they still work. I still think that till this day, if these neutral palettes came out now, and then especially the sand haze, like if this were to be expanded to a larger palette, I think I might be interested. It's actually reminding me a little bit of the Catrice Falling Colors, but then like a 9-pan version of that. Yeah, it's giving Catrice Falling Colors. It's making me realize why I love that one so much. Because that palette, even though it's by Catrice, feels like a Huda Beauty palette in terms of quality, and it very much has these kind of shades with like some plummy, rosy, taupey things mixed in with some warmth, and it's such a beautiful palette. So yes. By the way, I think today the day this video goes live is January 14th, which means you have an entire day left to enter the giveaway if you want to win that Catrice palette. I'll pop a picture up on the screen if I can find it. But yeah, it's still part of the giveaway, and the giveaway is open for one more day in case you're interested. So these three Huda Beauty palettes I think are my favorites. Like I could possibly do without the other ones because I just have so many other things I prefer. But Huda Beauty can just do a really good neutral. I just think they do. So do really appreciate these three for sure. So there you have it. Those were my Huda Beauty palettes. Would I go back to these? Would I repurchase these? If these came out today, would I still be interested in them? Would I mourn some of these if I ever lost them? And now that I've done this video, I realize that yeah, a couple of them I really, really hold up here, but a couple of them I'm like, so this may be information I need to take into account when I do my declutters later this year. Gonna do them in March, by the way. So eyeshadow palette declutter, maybe get rid of most of my Huda Beauty and just keep the three I like. What would you do? Let me know in a comment down below. For now, thank you so very much for being here today. Thumbs up this video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make several videos every single week, so if you'd like to stay tuned, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye-bye.